Today on Scotty and Rico Make a Podcast.
I said, that's really cool. I want to play guitar with you guys. And they said, well, too bad for you. We already have 2 guitars in this group. So if you want to play with us, you're going to have to go get a bass.
Well, I would think what you don't want to have happen is the most memorable song that they walk away with is not even your song. I happen to find that the feel of the strings on my fingers is what makes playing the bass so amazing.
There's no difference between being infamous and famous.
All right, welcome to the episode. We got me, Scotty, and with us is Jeremy from the Seraphonics.
Yes, hi. That's true. I'm Jeremy from the Seraphonics.
And we're going to ask him questions about who he is as a musician, what got him there, and everything else you need to know of him.
That's right. And towards the end of the show, we're going to persuade you to come to a concert with the Seraphonics, Exogen, and Rift on April 26th at American Rock Bar.
I want to know, how old were you when you realized you wanted to learn how to play an instrument?
The first inkling I had that I wanted to play was when I was 11 years old. I remember seeing a TV commercial for this little electronic instrument. It was called a Hot Licks.
Uh-huh.
It was like an electronic guitar, and I think Licks was spelled L-I-X-X, but I'm not sure. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But that was the first idea I had that, hey, music gets made by people. It's not this thing that just appears on the radio. Like, people actually do it, and I could potentially be one of those people.
Okay.
If I could figure out how to do it.
All you have to do is push a button. That'd be that easy.
Yeah, that was the whole idea behind this thing. I mean, it sort of looked like one of the controllers does for that Rock Band video game, where it just had like buttons all down the neck, and then it had some buttons on the body of the guitar, and you would push the buttons, and it would sort of like play a little riff, or it would play some chords or whatever. I had the idea for about 2 years that I could do that, and, flash forward, I was about 13 years old. 2 of my friends got guitars for Christmas, and I said, that's really cool. I want to play guitar with you guys. And they said, well, too bad for you. We already have 2 guitars in this group. So if you want to play with us, you're going to have to go get a bass.
I think it's how it is as a bass player. Like, most people start out with like, well, we already have a guitarist, so we need a bass player.
I think that's I think that's exactly how it works. So I went out and I got my first bass. I mowed lawns to get it. I did a bunch of chores, and I basically begged my mom for the money. It was a Hondo by Moradora.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, neither had I. But I didn't know a bass from my ass. I mean, I didn't even have any idea like what a bass was. They explained to me, they're like, it's an octave lower, and the strings are thicker, and your band needs one. And I'm like, and I was like, okay, well, that's cool. Does that mean that I get to stand there in the band and also play with people? And they're like, yeah, that's what it means.
Nice.
Yeah, and I was like, so I'm in. So I got that, and then I remember I got a little Crate amp. Remember Crate?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was like the economy amp of like the 90s.
Oh, sure.
So I got a little Crate amp with a 10-inch speaker that was in no way loud enough to play with a band, but it existed.
Well, would you do it in a garage or someone's bedroom?
We were just in the living room.
Living room?
Yeah, I was down in South Miami at the time. We were just rocking it out in the living room.
Okay. So what did you guys play? What kind of music?
We started right away. I think the first song we learned was Patience by Guns N' Roses.
Oh, wow.
And it's not like we learned the song through. You just like learn like the intro and would work on that for hours. Nobody knew what the fuck they were doing. So they would sit there and say, oh, I think it's like this. I think it's like this.
Wait, you didn't have, like they have today, you didn't have ultimateguitar.com that you can go to and go get the tabs.
No, you just would listen to it and try to figure out what the chord was.
So what was that like? Because you don't have any formal music training at this point.
In the case of Patience, it wasn't too bad because that song is like all first position chords. So it just so happens that those were the same C, G, D, A, chords that we were playing already. And the 2 guys that I was playing guitar with, their names were Chris and Laban. They were pretty good. Like they had gotten to the point where they had learned how to do things.
Okay.
And I do remember we also played the middle portion of the Metallica song off of Injustice for All, To Live Is to Die.
Oh my gosh.
It has like this quiet part in the middle, and so we sort of learned that little thing as well. But we weren't in no way playing complete songs. Like we were just playing little pieces of things and trying
just do
to figure it
over and over and over.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we sort of very quickly moved into the idea that we were going to be doing our own stuff. And so we were writing like right from the beginning. There was no idea that we were going to learn to play, 10 different covers or stuff like that.
So when you guys formed, your idea was, I want to be an original band, but I'm going to learn covers so I can learn how to play my instrument.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's exactly like once you got the basics of the instrument down, we had kind of moved beyond that, and people were coming in with song ideas, and we were organizing those song ideas. When I was in 9th grade, we produced a little EP. We went in the studio. We begged our parents for more money so that we could do it. The name of our little group was 3 Mile Island.
Oh my! Okay, awesome.
Yeah. And anybody who's out there who's listening to the 3 Mile Island stuff right now, hey, here we are.
Do you have anything that's online where they can listen to it?
I don't think there's anything online. I guess I could probably search through it and look for it and put it up on the band's Facebook page.
Yeah.
I could. I suppose I could try to find that, but it's pretty funny. It's no great shakes. But I was playing bass and I was singing, so.
You know what's weird? When my first band, I used to record everything with a crappy recorder, nothing fancy. But I always like to have something I can go back and listen to it. And there's some stuff that I was really good at that moment, just not really thinking about what I was doing, not worried about what chord comes next or what notes, because I had no idea what I'm doing. I was just pressing things on the bass. But there's some really good stuff out in there. And I like to go back and be like, wow, that was genius. Like, what was that? Where did that come from?
I agree with that. I often find myself going back to stuff that was written, in the past. The 3 Mile Island stuff, though, I didn't write a lot of that stuff. A lot of that stuff was written by the other two guys, and so I was really just putting together bass lines. We did, we did one song. It was called, you got to realize I'm like an 8th grader. We did a song called Street Party, which was like an instrumental song. It had like this silly slap bass line. We did another song called Architecture, and we did another song called No More, and then we did a cover of Hey Joe by Jimi Hendrix, and that was it. Like, that was the whole thing. It was like a little 4-song EP. And I think there are family members out there that probably have tapes of it somewhere that I'd have to locate.
Yeah. Now, talking about learning and your process for how you did it, you're practicing. Did you do it mostly with the guys you like in the band, or did you find yourself at home practicing by yourself? How often would you practice?
To be honest with you, I don't really remember practicing so much as practicing. I don't remember having disciplined practice sessions. I never remember sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to play bass for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to run up these scales and down these scales. I didn't do that really on the bass until later on. As far as practicing goes early on and getting that initial push, I just know that I was very into playing. I really liked playing, and when I like something, I figure out how to do it.
Did you have any songs or any riffs that you really enjoyed playing that you were learning? You're like, oh man, I could play this over and over and over, and it's just awesome every time.
I remember, now that I'm thinking about it, I did have lessons. So I had maybe 4 or 5 lessons from the guy, and we were taking apart the bass solo Anesthesia from the Kill 'Em All album. I remember that.
Yeah.
That was like...
Yeah, well, that's a good finger stretching exercise right there.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I don't think I could play that song today if you gave me $1 million. But I remember learning how to play it, and I remember that learning how to play it was a good exercise just in general of getting more familiar with the bass.
Yeah, I think back to when I started on a guitar, and I bought a cheap Ibanez Geo. I took that thing with me everywhere. If I was home, I was on the couch playing the guitar. If I was out with some friends, I brought the guitar with me. I was at my parents', I brought the guitar with me. Like, everywhere it went. Now, I started later, though. I started in my early 20s.
Okay.
So I was just infatuated with learning. And I remember it came with a book, and it just had riffs in it, like Iron Man and a couple other simple stuff. And I would just rock them over and over and over. And then I came across CKY 96 Quite Bitter Beings. And if you've ever looked at a riff, it's awesome. It's got every complex piece of music that you could think of. So it's got these finger stretching, hammer-on, slides. And as someone who's just starting off, I was like infatuated with this. And even to this day, I'll still pick up a guitar and play that riff.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't really have any riffs like that. I don't know if I maybe just never fell into it that way. I mean, there's a bunch of songs I know how to play, that are not my songs, that are other people's songs.
Yeah. I want to go back to when you were younger. Do you remember what your first show experience was like?
The first show that I played.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a talent show. It could be a rock show you played at a bar.
So 3 Mile Island never played a show. What happened was when I was in 10th grade, I moved up to Ohio from Miami. 3 Mile Island was a Miami group. I moved up to Ohio, and we started a group named Lotus with a guy named Ryan Nichols. I'm still friendly with him today. He played guitar. I played bass, and I sang for that group. Another guy, Aaron Gospel, on drums. And then later on, we added Keith Cameron, who is this fantastic singer who replaced me as the singer.
Yeah.
I'm hugely into replacing myself as the singer in bands. It's like my favorite thing to do is divest myself of the responsibility. So we played our first show was the Tiger Talent show. Tiger Talent being the Pickerington Tigers.
Okay.
And they told us that we could play 2 songs, so we had 2 original songs that we played. We tried to jam a third song, which was Man in the Box by Alice in Chains, that we were doing as a cover, onto the end of the second song, so technically we never stopped playing.
Right.
It was just going to be one really long song. They dropped the curtain on us as soon as they realized that that's what we were doing. And then everybody got mad because everybody was there. You know, there were a bunch of people that were there to listen to us, and so they made a big scene and a stink. And it was sort of high school hijinks. But at the time, it could not have ended in a better way because it sort of made it look like, you know, the school was worried about us or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, there's no difference between being infamous and famous. So,
yeah. So you had a good time. It wasn't a bad experience.
At the time, it sucked. But looking back on it, it couldn't have possibly ended in a better way.
Yeah.
Because everybody at school knew about it the next day. You know, it basically took us and sort of cast us into this.
That's so cool. Yeah, being rebels at the time too.
Exactly. You know, as much as a rebel as you can be, you know, in high school. But
telling that story reminded me. I did a battle of the bands, and we put in a cover of Led Zeppelin, the Immigrant Song. And we changed it to our own style.
That's a fucking tough song to play, man.
Yeah, well, I guess it's really hard because I played in a cover band and I played the original way. I already knew how to play it anyway. But then we changed it up. We rocked it up a little bit.
Okay.
We played it, and the person who's running the Battle of the Bands runs up to me and yells at me and says, "Don't play any more cover songs. This is original songs only." And I was like, all right, no problem. We don't have any more anyway. But it's like, yeah, we didn't have a chance after that. It was done.
So you had a battle of the bands, and the idea was that everybody was supposed to play original songs. I guess their fear was that if they played cover songs, then people would just vote for the songs that they were most familiar with.
Well, there is something about being an original band. The person who's never heard you before, they have no idea what to expect. And so when they hear a cover song, it's familiar, and people like familiarity. I made a mistake last show. When the singer was talking, I just was strumming on the bass, which I do on my own, and I kind of hit sober. I was strumming on the chord.
Sure.
And I just did it in that fashion, and someone in the crowd picked up on it and goes, "Yay, sober!" And it was like, crap, you know, this is not what we want to do. You don't want to get someone's expectations up and then not play it. And I was like, I will not do that again.
So yeah, I mean, I think you hit there on something that's like a constant. There's a constant tension because there is this whole alternative universe of cover bands and venues that will allow cover bands to play, and people that are members of cover bands getting a tremendous amount of notoriety for playing in this cover band. You know, and nowhere was it more clear than when Amy and I went up to Nashville and we saw cover band after cover band playing these country songs, and they were fucking great. Yeah. They were so fun. They were amazing. But that's like the rarefied air of cover bands. I have always been very, very leery of playing covers with the Seraphonics for exactly the reason you just described. Because what you're doing is you're competing, you are now placing your original songs that people aren't familiar with against these covers that people are familiar with.
Well, I would think what you don't want to have happen is the most memorable song that they walk away with is not even your song.
Right. Oh, you're that band that played, you know, Dark Side of the Moon. You guys were great.
Oh, my God. What's that band that you introduced me to that redid Dark Side of the Moon?
Oh, those guys are fucking great. Doom Side of the Moon.
Oh, my God.
Listen, go do me a favor, people out there in podcast land. Just open up the Spotify or Apple Music app on your phone. If you like Dark Side of the Moon, if you like Pink Floyd, and you like heavy music, open up the Spotify or Apple Music app. Type